So when it comes to like the room mix versus the live stream mix, I mean, we're basically talking about live sound versus recorded sound, which whenever we talked about doing this interview, you're like, I want to talk about, recording sound because you just got through recording an album. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that real quick?
Sure. Yeah, I'm deep in the recording tech stuff right now. So I just finished I just released Hymns of the Father, which is a 20-song modern hymn album. So I finished recording that like 3 months ago or so. And it was 20 songs. It was all me recording, doing all the instruments and all that. I usually do acoustic-y stuff, and I wanted to kind of get stuff for the people who have full modern worship bands. So this has full bands. It's got synths. It's got electric guitar. It's got bass. It's got drums. It's got everything. And so since I played them all and I recorded them all, I had to learn how to mix them all. And I had a little, I had an idea from doing live church sound, but when you start recording these things, you got to get like deep. So I'm like nerding out on compressor settings for 3 hours, trying to figure out how to compress like the third electric guitar on the thing. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Absolutely loved it. So that's what I've been doing is I've been in the studio for like 6 months straight, recording and mixing that album. So it's good to see daylight again.
I bet so. And man, whenever you're talking about, mixing for a recording, that's the same thing as mixing for a live stream, because you're mixing for somebody that's going to be playing this over, honestly, most people are going to be playing it over their phone speakers, which is a bummer. But some people will have, nicer speakers that they're playing it with. But you just talked about, compression. And when it comes to a room mix, you can get away with less compression on vocals because, the extra dynamic range will kind of be swallowed up by the room and you may not notice it as much. But when it comes to a live stream mix or a recorded mix, you have to be a lot more aggressive with compression in order to get a good mix. So what did you learn about compressing vocals in your journey?
Mainly I learned that no one has the same opinion on how to do it. But these these world-renowned mix engineers will say the opposite things on how to compress vocals. So that tells you that you got to listen to it. Like that's really the only way. I feel like I'll give you my opinions here, who is not a professional mix engineer, by the way, but I've been doing it a lot recently. So I feel like you can compress vocals quite a bit harder than you can compress a lot of other instruments, simply because of the nature of the voice as an instrument. It is already very dynamic and very unstable, which other instruments are. Like if you play a guitar string, it's a note and it's kind of a consistent curve of volume. If you sing a note, you never know what that person's gonna. It might be a consistent curve. It might be in and out. It might be it's already such a varied and unstable instrument that I think you can compress it a bit more because people don't really notice that difference in volume because it's a natural difference in volume anyway. If you have the ability to, which a lot of people might not, but if you're mixing your live stream in a DAW, you can. I like to stage my compression and do gradual compression. So like on all my vocal chains on my recording, there's 3 or 4 compressors, like compressor EQ, compressor EQ, compressor EQ. And I just like doing that because you can compress a lot, but it's more subtle because that one compressor isn't like trying to bump it down like by a ratio 4-to-1. You got like 4 ratios of like 1.5-to-1, and this one brings it down a little, and the next one does, and the next one does. And it's a much more gentle way to do compression. So if you can stage compression, that's a good way to do it. I know 1, you might not be able to, and 2, that's just a lot of work to adjust 4 compressors. So if you're going with a single compressor, I would do I'm probably a little more upfront with the compression than some people might recommend. So be aware of that when I say these settings, but I would probably go like 3-to-1 ratio, maybe up to 4-to-1 for the lead vocal, just because you want to keep it consistent on the live stream. I find that attack and release with vocals isn't as important with other instruments. Like a bass drum, you got to be super careful about the attack because that's what all a bass drum does is attack. But vocals, again, like the attack of a vocal isn't usually an attack. It's usually like even if you can't hear the build up, we just have to build up to a note because we have to breathe, So attack and release, not as important. I usually go with like a 20 millisecond between 10 and 30 millisecond attack. Some people go low, some people go high. Release, I go pretty long, like a 80 or higher. The biggest thing with vocals is the threshold. That's usually the biggest thing with any compressor, that's not something that you can say, do this threshold, because that is completely dependent on the level of your track, because that's the speed limit of your compressor. That's the point where it says, hey, we've gotten this fast, turn it down. Or we've gotten this loud, turn it down. So that you literally have to do with the vocalist at the time while you're mixing. You can't guess, because I could set my threshold to -20 and this vocalist would never hit that, and this vocalist would be squashed to, all heck, because they're wildly different volumes. So threshold you need to set with the vocalist, like during the mix, you need to adjust it and make sure that you're not putting 10 dBs of reduction on it if you're not intending to, or the opposite. So that's probably my live stream settings.
This video is brought to you by X32 Mastery, the fastest way to master both the X32 and the M32. Get access today for you and your team at x32.church.
Yeah, so when you're adjusting that threshold, you're looking at the gain reduction meter, to figure out where you're at. So what are you looking at on the gain reduction meter? How much are you trying to push that vocal down?
If it's a single compressor and it's a pretty loud mix, like you're mixing an Elevation song or something, you can go 5, 6, 10. 10's probably pushing it, and you're probably going to start hearing a little squashiness, which you might want. I don't know. But I think 5 is fine for a vocal if it doesn't sound too squashed. That's the biggest thing. If you can hear the compressor, it's probably too far, because at that point it's sounding like waviness and grittiness and nastiness. So, but yeah.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. My threshold is like gain reduction at -6, and like that's as far as I'm going to go. Especially a lot of churches are using the Behringer X32. And that's mid-range quality equipment. So you start compressing more than 60 dB and you're really going to hear it. I always it kind of sounds like you're sticking a hand in front of their face, or it just, the vocal sounds smashed. It starts to lose its life. It starts to lose its presence. Mm-hmm. And maybe with a higher quality compressor, you can get away compressing more than that. I don't know. I've never got my hands on one, but
yeah. And there's some of these software compressors now are just really good. Like even the cheaper ones, like one I use is from Klangham. They're a plug-in manufacturer, and it's like a $30 compressor, but it's I think it's a L2. What is that compressor? L2A2? L2-2A. L2-2A is the compressor it emulates, and it's an amazing plugin for like $30. And I could squash the heck out of stuff with that, and I don't hear it, but that, like the built-in Behringer compressor, you're gonna have to be careful with that.
Well, man, you got me thinking about staging compression, or I guess you could kind of call that layering compression, right? To help people understand that. One compressor on top of the other. I wonder if on the you're mixing on the X32, your live stream and your room mix, if you can maybe subgroup your vocals into one of the buses and put another compressor there, like have a compressor on each individual vocal, and then send those all to a bus and then compress them again. Have you ever heard of anybody doing that?
I'm not sure about a live stream setting. In recording, like don't tell anybody, but I have like a compressor on every bus. So like the vocals go to a mixed bus without a compressor, which goes to a instrument bus without a compressor, which goes to the mixed bus which has a compressor. But I think it's trickier to do in a like a Behringer. I don't see why that wouldn't work though, because you're doing the same thing. You're compressing each individually, and then the bus is compressing it. So as far as the sound quality, I think that would be the same as adding two compressors on the same thing. You'd have to try that. I've not heard that though.
Yeah, I'm just spitting out ideas, just something I thought of. I'm going to have to go try it and see how it goes.
Let me know how that goes.
Yeah, man. It's something I learned. I didn't mix a live stream until COVID hit last year. We didn't live stream our service, and so I just never had a reason to jump into it. And man, what I found out is that everything needed compression, because there were certain things in the room mix we just didn't compress. Because my whole theory was, if it doesn't need it, then don't use it. I'm kind of a simple guy, so Yeah. And then you hear that in the live stream mix, you're like, wow, there's way too much dynamic range in this mix. So compression is just something that you really have to pay attention to if you want a great live stream mix or if you want a great recorded mix. So thank you for sharing these tips. And let me know if I get this right, but you said you recommend a ratio of like 3 or 4 to 1 on vocals and an attack time of like 10 to 20 milliseconds, a release of like 80 to 100 milliseconds. And then you set that threshold to where you're not reducing more than 6 dB. Did I get all that right?
That sounds really good. Yep.
Awesome. So there you go. And I also have a compression cheat sheet for live stream mix that you can download, and I'll include a link to that in the description for this video.